So what is the it to which you're referring? When you say it's in us, what is the it to which you're referring?
I would say just the power and confidence that we can be stronger than what is on the outside of us and what's affecting us, like our feelings or thoughts from other people.
So anybody know the word for that? There is a word for it. I don't think we do. We don't really use it very much anymore. That's unfortunate because it's a word that will change your life if you let it, if you really internalize it. It's the will. It's that you have a will to do something. Like you have a will to overcome, or you have a will, or you lack a will to overcome. And that's where strength comes from. That inner strength that we talk about, it's an inner strength of the will. And when we don't know the thing that we're talking about, it becomes easy for us to neglect the fact that we actually have it. You know, it's interesting. I was talking to some students recently, and they were complaining about Christopher Columbus. And I made a comment to the effect of, he's a man of his times. He's a man of his times. And they weren't sure if I was being serious or not. And they were like, yeah, but he was this terrible person. And I said, yeah, but there's a very good chance that your neighbor is also. And the person down the street from you is also. And I said, you probably have some friends who are terrible people as well. And I referenced someone's specifics. I knew that this person was friends with them. And this person's a problem, to say the least. And they go, yeah, but look at his family, though. And I said, so you're going to excuse that person's behavior because of their family, but you won't excuse Christopher Columbus for living in the world that he lived in. It wasn't just his family. It wasn't just his friends. It was that and the whole world. And we neglect the fact that those things have the ability to affect our behavior. For some reason, we resist that, and we just go, yeah, but that should tell you something very important. It should tell you that you've been indoctrinated with so much hatred towards people, and we don't even particularly understand why. And a big part of it is because intuitively we feel like regardless of where you grow up, regardless of who you're around, you have the ability to make choices. We're just more strict with some people than others about that. We're more lax with our friends and family than we are about historical figures. We're so fast to want to tear down the statues and erase any accomplishments that they made, and yet look at our friends and go, yeah, they're just struggling with some things right now. Yeah, you don't know what they're going through. And that's because intuitively we feel like there should be some kind of an emphasis on this thing called the will, the ability to decide what influences you succumb to, and the ability to decide what influences you allow to contribute to your life. And I do hear this kind of stuff, like, and I'm starting to feel like old man Scanlon maybe, because it's a lot, and I think you'll agree with this, the last couple of years, a lot more of it, man. Well, like we have jokes about it. Like my social anxiety is leading to my depression because someone's gaslighting me, and it's like, my God, at what point do you look at all of that and say, all of that might be going on? Yes, true, but now what? Yeah, but society is so unfair. It always has been. Are you going to run around and kick every dog that barks at you? Because if so, you're never going to have time to actually do anything or accomplish anything that makes you actually feel genuinely good about yourself. All that you're going to do is kick a bunch of dogs. And as we know, every dog that barks and you kick it, it causes another dog to bark. And that's because we neglect this idea of the will within ourselves. Because he points out, it's time you realize that you have something in you more powerful and miraculous. Not just strong. We use this word literally today to literally mean the opposite of literally. We'll say, I am literally dying right now. No, you're not. So that word loses its meaning. So we neglect the importance of language, and we neglect the importance of using specific words to be specific in what we're saying. But Marcus Aurelius is being very specific here. He's talking to himself, remember. He's writing a journal. Everything that we have from Marcus Aurelius from Meditations is a journal that he's writing to himself. He's not writing to you. He's not writing to me. He's not writing to anybody except for himself, which is probably the absolute best self-help book that you could possibly write, which is a book to yourself. Not telling other people how to live, but reminding yourself how best to live. Reminding yourself how best to live based off of the things that you already know. But of course, you can't remind yourself of what you already know if you don't know anything. And so the first thing is to set out to try to figure out how best to live. To figure out what is the world around you. To figure out how you fit into it, which of course begins with understanding yourself and knowing yourself. And then you won't necessarily be one of those people who runs around trying to kick dogs all the time, because you're going to realize that the first thing you have to master is not the world, but yourself. And I find that the people who run around and try to change the world constantly, I'm not saying everybody tries to change the world, but by and large, people running around the streets with placards and telling everybody else how we're supposed to talk and how we're supposed to think and what's funny and what's not funny, which, by the way, usually comes from the most humorless people I've ever met in my life. But why is it that they're so angry? Because they haven't mastered themselves. And they're living in a world where they feel like they're not enough. And they're not enough. Because they haven't mastered themselves. They're trying to get the whole world to change to benefit them. Because it's easier for them to tell you how you should behave rather than tell themselves how they should behave. And so Marcus Aurelius is reminding himself, it's time I realize I have something in me. You can replace the yous with the I's and the me's. It's time I realize I have something in me more powerful than this word miraculous. It's a miracle that you can do these things. It's the thing that it's far more powerful than the things that affect you and make you dance like a puppet. And what are the things that make us dance like a puppet? Fear, jealousy, desire. All of these things that cause us to act contrary to our best interests, and they cause us to act contrary to what it is to be a good person. These are the things that override the most important aspect of you, which is this, your will. It's your will. Oh, I can't control myself. Why not? Because I'm so scared. You can't control yourself. Yes, you can. It's your will. You just accept it about yourself that you allow fear to dominate you. Yeah, but I get so angry all the time. I just can't. It's your will. Yeah, but that person called me a name, and so that's your will. You're allowing other people to determine how you live and move you around like a puppet. You're not in control of yourself. Just think about the language that we use when we say stuff like that. I just can't help it. Yes, you can. And as soon as you say things like, I can't help it, then you're giving yourself license to not help it. But then at that point, you're calling yourself just a puppet that's being commanded by the rest of the world, being commanded by strangers. A stranger walks up and calls you a name, or a stranger walks up and insults you, or a stranger insults you online, and we get so fired up about that. Wait, what'd they say? What'd they say? They've now taken control of you. And if I ran up to you, if you're walking down the street and I ran up to you in my white van with no windows, not that I have one, but and I bailed out and I threw you in the back of that van and I drove off and took you to God knows where, you'd probably be pretty upset about that. I hope.
Maybe you have tacos?
Yeah, exactly. Some of you will be sitting there going like, so, what made you pick me? But hopefully you'd be upset about that because I've taken control of your body. And I'm telling you, you cannot go where you want to go. You can't do the things you want to do. But yet we let other people take control of our minds all the time, which is the exact same thing, except if it makes us feel like we have a say in it. We do have a say in it, but as soon as I can just, if I want to rile you up and just call you a name or to make you act in a way like, I remember a couple years ago we had all those riots back in 2020, and some of you probably know about this, some of you might know about this, where there were these protests that were like spontaneously called at certain places. No one knows who called for them. All of a sudden people just kind of show up, and there's piles of bricks that are just laying around on the sidewalks for some reason. Do you think there's any reason that all of a sudden people were called together to one spot and there were piles of bricks left all over the place? What do you think they were wanting people to do? Exactly what they did. Start to smash windows, attack people, burn things down. Nobody had to tell you to do it. They just had to create this scenario. Why? Because then people get caught up in a mob. And you know what? When you're in a mob, you just can't help it, right? Your will is overcome. And then afterwards, when we say things like, I don't know why I did that. That's not me. Oh, it is you. Lemons don't come from apple trees, my friends. Apples don't come from grapevines, I guess. And evil doesn't come from you unless it's inside of you. And so the first thing is to recognize all of what you are. Is there evil inside of you? Duh. Yeah, of course there is. And it's the unwillingness to recognize it that allows it to pop off. As soon as you recognize that that's inside of you, now you can control it. But there's something that's in you that is far more miraculous than that. And that's your ability to choose, the will. Your ability to decide, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give in to fear and jealousy and desire. And it's interesting, isn't it, that he puts desire right next to jealousy and fear? Because the things that you want, so what are all these things? Desire, fear, and jealousy, feelings like that, they all have something in common. They are all distractions. They're all distractions. The things in your life that are going to stop you from getting the things that you really should get, are distractions. That's it, distractions. We allow ourselves to be distracted by shiny objects. Hell, we allow ourselves to be distracted by shiny people. And all of those things take us off of the path that we know where we want to get to. We have a goal, we have an ambition, we have something that we want to accomplish. I think it was John Lennon, the Beatles. He took a break from his busy wife-beating schedule, and he said something to the effect of, life is what happens while you're making other plans. Yeah, kind of. And we say that like, well, life just happens. No. Circumstances happen. That's true. Things come up. But what comes up more than almost anything are shiny objects, distractions. I think this is the last time I'm going to talk to you guys. And I'm thinking, what is it that you want to do in your life? And what are the distractions that you're allowing yourself to succumb to? A distraction can be fear. It can be jealousy. It can be desire. In other words, desiring the wrong things. But you've got this thing that's more miraculous in you than you can even possibly understand totally, which is your will. Your ability to decide to either follow the distractions or stay the course. People will come up to you and they'll call you names. Why? Because they're bored. They've got nothing else going on. And I'm not saying to sit there and be like, oh, I pity you, that fake pity, What I'm saying is disregard it. Why? Because it's a distraction. But you can't just let people get away with stuff. So what are you going to do? Kick every dog? Because every dog along the way is going to distract you. What is it that's going to benefit you? To stop and try to yell at everybody who yells at you, or to pursue the thing that you're pursuing, to not get distracted. Is it easy to ignore every distraction, to wipe away everything? It's child's play, man. Because there's one thing that stops you from being able to do it. And it's something I think I mentioned to you probably the first time I ever talked to you. And I asked you to help me come up with something good that comes from it. And I'm still coming up blank, man, after 10 years of asking this question. And it's the word pride. It's that pride. Someone says something to me, I gotta clap back, man. Why? Because you're pride. You can't just let people. Why not? Well, because my pride is what it really comes down to. You're being distracted. You're allowing your will to be overcome. You're allowing yourself to be distracted. And at the end of your life, what is it that you're going to look back on? Hell, at the end of today, Not even at the end of your life. At the end of this period even. At the end of whatever period you establish, today, tomorrow, the rest of your life, what is it you're going to be proud of when you look back on? The things that you accomplished, or all the people you clap back at? All the shit you talked online? All the placards you held in the street, and all the marches you did, and all the bricks that you threw? Is throwing bricks fun? Yeah. I've been in a couple of riots. They're a lot of fun. Don't do it. Don't do it. I've been in a couple. You know what value I got out of it? To be able to come back and tell you, don't be part of it. It's a distraction. If I had been arrested, if I had been hurt, if something like that had happened, I certainly wouldn't be on the path that I'm on right now. It would have been a distraction. Everything that you allow to distract you, every argument, every snide comment, everybody who comes after you. I don't know if any of you have ever had someone really come after you and try to destroy you. I have. What do you do with it? Do you clap back? It's a distraction. It stops you from pursuing the things that you want to pursue, the directions you want to go in. And every time that you allow that person, these people to divert you, it takes you off of that path. It overrides your will. Does that mean that you're afraid? No. And that's one of the reasons you have to be able to defend yourself, because in case. But everything else is a distraction, man. So I guess that's what I'd say to you if I had one last time to talk to you, which I guess this is. And one last thing to say to you, which I guess this is, I would say that to you. Don't be distracted. Don't be distracted. You remember the dragon crossing the moat into the castle? If any of you remember that from the first semester I talked about that? What's the worst thing the knight can do when they're going to go fight the dragon? They get distracted. Put on armor. So you're going to put on armor to fight a fire-breathing dragon. Metal armor. That all that things you got to do is just blow fire near you and you'll get cooked. So why is it in all of these stories knights put on the armor? Because that's what we do. We fight our problems by doing the wrong thing, by doing things that make it worse. What are some of the things that make it worse? You allow yourself to get distracted. I allow myself to get distracted. When I talk to you guys, I'm not talking to you. I hope you understand by now. I'm writing a journal to myself, as Marcus Aurelius is. You just happen to be in the room. If you guys aren't here, and if I'm in my own room, guess what I'm doing right now? Talking to myself, reminding myself, don't get distracted. I'm talking about these exact same issues. And once I'm not talking about them anymore, we change the PowerPoint and we talk about something else. But the best way to live that thing is to stop letting yourself be distracted. Stay focused like a laser on the things that are important to you, on the people that are important to you, on the ideas and the concepts and the principles, for God's sake, that are important to you. Because those are the things that guide your life. What is it that's going to make the world better? Is it all of that stuff? Is it anger? Is it jealousy? Is it fear? No. It's only one thing that's going to make the world better. It's only one thing that can save the world. And that's love. And I'm not saying this in some hippie way of like, we have to love each other. No, first things first, you have to love yourself. And if you loved yourself, you wouldn't allow yourself to be distracted. You wouldn't allow other people to take control of your will. And you would pursue the things that are you, that are genuinely you. I'm going to imagine that fear, jealousy, and desire, feelings like that, are not that. So if the world's going to be saved, if you're going to be saved, I hope the world is saved. Because that's where I keep all my stuff. It's also where all the people I love live so far. And so, love. But love yourself. That means to love your will. That means not let yourself get distracted. And at that point, wiping away every distraction, wiping away every assault on your character, wiping away everything that is not that, child's play. Questions? Comments, concerns, complaints, criticisms, critiques? Alright. That really is it. Cool.